Please welcome our next speakers, Lennart, Conrad, and Mirza Abdic. Today, they will be presenting warehouse-only mode. Please stick around after Lennart and Mirza's session for a live Q&A.
Hello everyone. Thanks to DynamicsCon, we have been giving this opportunity to present you Dynamics 365 SCM WMS solution, and the topic that we will be talking about today is a warehouse-only mode as a part of the WMS inside the SCM module. My name is Mirza, and I've been with Microsoft for 14 years. My role is Principal Product Manager in the supply chain management development, and today I will be presenting with my colleague Lennart, who will present himself later. So let's jump into it. Today our agenda is following. We will first be talking about why warehouse-only mode. So what was the reason why we have started with this initiative? We will be talking about warehouse-only mode scenarios. We will be talking about warehouse-only mode architecture deep dive. This is the place where, or part where the Lennart will be presenting you with the architecture of the warehouse-only mode. We will go through some demos and we will have time for the Q&A. So the first topic is why warehouse-only mode. Over the years, since 2014, where the first customer went live with our WMS solution, we have been asked by customers and prospects if we could enable our warehousing solution to be used with external systems. That could be scenarios like when one of our customers acquires another company that runs another type of ERP system. They've been asking how could we enable our WMS for that company. The other scenarios could be that customers wanted to run shared warehousing, where the same warehouse facility is shared across the multiple companies inside the organization. And we have here some scenarios like 3PL support, and as well scenarios like one where customer wanted to give WMS solution to one of their largest vendors. So there was plenty of different asks to enable this capability for our customers and prospects, and that will enable run of WMS solution without necessarily doing what we call rip and replace, exchanging a whole ERP system. So let's have a look what scenarios we have enabled. Looking at the warehouse-only mode scenarios, now since this summer 24, when it was generally available for everyone, we have enabled now our WMS solution to run with any external ERP solution, which means that makes it ERP agnostic. And we do provide a full set of interfaces and events for rapid integration with any order-taking system or ERP. It does work as well with other Microsoft products like Business Central. It does support same set of features as integrated D365 WMS, which means that we have a same code base and the same set of features that you will find in a fully integrated WMS inside SCM module. You will also find if you are using warehouse-only mode capability. It does support multiple different scenarios. One of them is 3PL implementation, which means that now our customer can actually act as a 3PL provider using the warehouse-only mode, and that will be then integrated with their customers and their ERP systems. And on the top of our 3PL capability, we have also implemented or integrated with some of the largest 3PL automatic billing solutions that will then enable you to cost your activities and value-added services inside your 3PL solution. We do also support with this shared warehousing scenarios, where you have a customer who would like to build a warehouse or a DC that will be shared among internal companies or legal entities, or also be shared with both internal and external companies. And that will be where the one company is actually running the warehouse, where the warehouse workers will be able to service multiple companies at the same time without even knowing what companies they are putting away and receiving items for and what companies they are shipping items for. And we have, in this context, uptaken something, enabled something called the ownership dimension, which enables us to know exact ownership of every single item that is stored inside this shared warehouse facility. We also have enabled that you can integrate with, as we said, with any ERP or ordering system outside. We can also, it is deployed from the SCM module, and which means that hasn't changed. We did not create a new SKU, so we didn't create a new product. Licensing is the same, everything the same, and as we have it inside our SCM module, this capability is automatically available for any customer when they upgrade to the version that this was released with. We can also run this integrated and WMS warehouse from same SCM tenant, which means that our customers who are running full set of modules inside the SCM and maybe have an integrated WMS supported by sales and purchase orders of the Dynamics 365. In the same time, they can create another warehouse inside their tenant, inside their system, that will be given to an external company in the what we call warehouse only mode. As soon as you activate and create warehouse in a warehouse only mode, the set of interfaces are exposed so you can integrate and use warehousing functionality from external system. As we said, it supports ownership dimension that we have enabled in the warehouse only mode, which also gives possibilities to run consignment inventories in the way better shape than we have seen before, which means that you do not need to separate parts of the warehouse and dedicate them to your external owner. You can now run optimized storage of the inventory, where on each location you will know who is owning what using our ownership dimension. Looking at the ecosystem of our solutions, as we can see, inside the heart of the supply chain management module, we will find two types of utilization, you can say, of the warehouse management system. One will be fully integrated with the SCM module of Dynamics, and the other one, as marked here on the slide, is when customers are using warehouse-only mode capabilities, which means that warehousing code, which is exactly same code as when you run it integrated. So we did not separate code either. It's a single code base that runs it in the two different ways, you can say. So if you run it in the warehouse only mode and you utilize warehousing functionality from outside system, that could be SAP, Oracle, Business Central, maybe another Dynamics 365 installation, AX on-prem, or anything else, you'll have same set of core WMS feature as if you are running it in the integrated way. But beyond that, you also have same access to automation, so material handling equipment, same access to carriers and transportation providers, access to Microsoft inventory visibility, intelligent order management, distributed order management, and as well cloud printing solution like Nice Label and Bartender that we are integrating out of box. So what we are trying to say is that even if you are SAP customer or an Oracle customer who wants only to leverage our warehouse only mode or our warehouse management solution in a warehouse only mode, you will have a same set of core WMS capabilities and as well scenarios that are stretching beyond core WMS as we have described. Now, going to the WM architecture deep dive, and now I will give the word to Lennart.
Thank you very much, Mirza. And let me use the opportunity to express that I'm super grateful to be here on DynamicsCon. It gives me the opportunity, or us the opportunity, to present the fruits of the Microsoft Dynamics SCM warehouse team's hard work here. I'm a principal engineering manager, so I am presenting the work of a lot of engineers on my team. Let's take a deeper look into the WOM architecture. Next slide, Mirza. So what is WOM actually? On a very high level, you can think of WOM as consisting of two new source documents, an inbound and an outbound shipment order. These are more abstract versions of sales and purchase orders, and they are used to also model, for instance, transfer order, return orders, and can also be used to model production scenarios. These are the main building blocks that support all the different scenarios that Mirza just went through. In order to integrate with these documents, we are using Business Event, which is a standard from capability inside Dynamics F&O. So there's nothing new there. Then we're using messages. That's the message processor, which is also like core functionality. We have just expanded on top of this. And finally, we're using entities. So there's a lot of entities provided out of the box to make the integration to WOM as easy as possible. Some of the guiding principles behind the architecture is that we want you to use messages for the integration. Of course, you can go directly to the core entities if you want, but our recommendation is to go through the entities. This allows decoupling of the data insertion and the data processing. And this is something we have learned from experience, that it can be a bit cumbersome if you insert directly into main entities like the sales order, because a lot of business logic runs there, making your integration more performance heavy. So here we have thought more about like separating the different steps. The benefit is also if you, for instance, have some inconsistent data, maybe your external ERP system provided you an address in the wrong format, you actually have the opportunity to handle this inside the WOM if you want. Of course, you can also reject the message, and then the external system needs to resend something. And so it gives you a bit more flexibility, and from a performance point of view, breaking up the process is also pretty efficient and allows you to trickle data. Second, we use lightweight mechanisms like business event to indicate changes. This is important to understand the idea behind this. So when something changes, for instance, the on-hand or that an outbound shipment is completed, we will emit a business event. This allows you to use existing ways of consuming business events, which is very lightweight. And if you then want to act on it from the external ERP system, then you can start pulling the entities that you need to get all the details about the change. So this is, again, a way of trying to shield the WOM system against like heavy polling, which we have seen sometimes being the case of other integrations. So how does it actually work? It's important to understand that WOM is using the exact same platform as standard D365. If I was to put it a bit on the edge, you could say that WOM is just some more tables and classes in X++. Of course, there's a lot of work that went into building these just classes and tables. So everything on this slide that is orange just indicates business as usual. Same platform, pretty much the same goes for warehouse planning and optimization. Receiving flows are the same, and outbound wave and work processing and shipment process are the same. There are a few extensions or adds to the main process that I'm going to show in the demo. From the external integration, I mean, that's the slide shows, and as Mirza also said, you can integrate with another D365, you can integrate with SAP or whatever order management system you want. Again, it's similar to if you had any integrations today to D365. So if we take it deeper dive into the main three processes that we're dealing with here. It's the outbound shipment flow, the inbound shipment flow, and then we also cover a bit about how to handle inventory on hand and reconciliation of this. So let me walk you through this diagram. So imagine that you have the ERP system that is represented by the blue and the warehouse management by the orange. So the outbound shipment flow would start with the sales order in the ERP system. The warehouse management system would receive this as an outbound shipment order message. This message will then go into a queue, and we would process this. And if we can process it, we would turn it into an outbound shipment order. This is what you could think of as similar to a sales order. Now that we have the outbound shipment order, we can release it to warehouse, we can waive it, and we can ship confirm it. And along the way, we emit some business events that can be nice for the external ERP to kind of keep track of how far is this order in the warehouse process. When we ship confirm, things become slightly different from what we know, because we want to be able to handle as much as possible as the outbound process inside the warehouse management module. So we also do a shipment packing slip, which is new compared to sales packing slip. And this actually keeps all the details about what was shipped. And this is, you can see this as a dispatch advice that the ERP can then consume in order to update its representation of the sales order. So the inbound shipment flow is pretty similar to the outbound, except that it is inbound. So here we would start with a purchase order. Again, we would receive an inbound shipment order message. If we could process this message, we would turn it into an inbound shipment order, and then we would go through a normal receiving flow inside the warehouse where we receive, put away, and then we need to complete the receiving to let the ERP system know that nothing more is actually going to come here. And again, we emit a business event, and we create a shipment receipt journal, which can then be consumed on the ERP side. So the ERP should not need to query a lot of internal entities representing how work traversed through the warehouse. It is these shipment journals that we imagine that you will integrate with. So inventory reconciliation, I mean, we often get this question, how do you keep the on-hand between the two systems in sync? And here, the guiding principle is, it is the warehouse that knows the on-hand representation. So the ERP can request adjustments to the warehouse on hand, but the normal flow is that any adjustments, unforeseen adjustment that is not coming in through an inbound or outbound document is something that the warehouse was handling. So it could start with accounting. Maybe we found some inventory, or maybe we were so unfortunate that we broke something. And now, of course, the ERP needs to be informed about this. So again, a business event will be emitted. And the ERP can now request the warehouse management system to generate a snapshot of the on-hand. This snapshot will then be created, and through entities, the ERP can consume this and reconcile with its own representation of the inventory. So for this demo, I'm going to use a simplified version of what we call the shared warehousing scenario. So the shared warehousing scenario is where you have multiple companies selling inventory, and you want a central warehouse to handle the shipment and receiving of goods for these different companies. This is something we support in D365 today, but when I demo it, you can try and imagine that whenever I go into the warehouse only mode, it doesn't have to be inside F&O that the inbound and outbound shipment request came from. It could be from SAP, it could be from Business Central, it could be from any order fulfillment system here. So with that, let me just share my screen, and let's get a demo from D365 up and running. Okay, so the first thing we notice here is that I have created a company that I call WOM. This is where I represent the warehouse operations. It's quite easy to set this up. If you have followed the latest releases, you will know that we invested quite a lot in creating wizards that allows you to set this up quickly. I'm not going to go through the whole setup, but trust me when I say it wasn't that complicated for me to set this up for this demo. I then use USMF, the classic demo data company, to represent the sales company. And there's a few things that is needed to kind of wire these two things together. And let me start in the WOM company. So as Mirza mentioned, we actually support some pretty advanced 3PL scenarios. And the most advanced scenario we need to deal with is the case where the WOM entity is having the ownership of the items. Not the ownership, but the data ownership of the data of the item setup, or the product setup. So that means that the external source systems, the two companies, they would actually allow one to control the shared product information, but then we still need a way to control who actually owns the inventory. And this is where the owner dimension comes into play. So everything starts with the source system setup. So what I set up here is I set up a source system that I call PIM, it's Product Information Management. And this is the source system that I want to be the owner of the data, not the owner of the inventory, but the owner of the data. Inside here, I've set up an item. So this is the known item from demo data. It's a warehouse controlled item. And I've associated this item to the source system called PIM. this indicates that PIM source system is the owner of the setup of this item. Okay. However, I have also set up a source system called USMF. This represents the USMF company, which is a different company that this company, the one company, knows nothing about. Because here you can imagine that we are not using D365 for the setup. Maybe it was SAP, and SAP has a different definition of companies. So this is just a way to map the external source system. So we have said that USMF here as a default inventory owner that I've set up that is associated to the USMF source system. That's how we will differentiate inventory for the different source systems. And then we have defined that P will be the product master, the one that actually owns this. And this allows us to share this product across multiple sources. Okay. Let's take a look at what happened in the sales company, USMF. I have created a purchase order, or I will create a purchase order. So notice that for vendor 1001, I just defined that the default warehouse is a warehouse called WOM/USMF. This is the warehouse that I, in the sales company, will use to indicate that I actually want to use an external warehouse. And there's a few things on the warehouse that you need to set up. It's very easy, and all of this is documented. So it's this externally managed warehouse. When this is set up, if I go back, and I confirm the purchase order, this is the trigger for how to get the integration going. Then if you remember the blue and orange slide, we will now send a message through the whole communication channel to the WOM company that, hey, we want you to create an outbound shipment. So if we go into the WOM company, we can find our inbound shipment order messages, and we can see that we received a message here, and we can see that the message has been accepted. So in the background, there's a message processor running here. If I then go to the inbound shipment orders, you can see that I have an inbound shipment order here that is open. So now I can start receiving this inbound order as it was a purchase order or inbound transfer. You can also see that behind the scenes, and this is a flexible setup, but I made it this way because it's easy, that a load has automatically been created. The load is the way we communicate that we are done with receiving. Okay. So I just set up a normal receive and put away flow here, where I will receive the inbound shipment order. And I need to remember this, so we will call it conf1. Okay, so I'm not going to put this this inventory into the location called storage one that I just set up for this demo. The work is done. There's nothing special here. Anybody that knows the warehouse management system would be thinking that this is quite familiar. And then I'll complete the receiving where I need the load. So at this point, the warehouse management system, the WOM, has done its part, and now it's time for the ERP to act on this receipt. So if we look at what happened on the ERP side, we can now see that we got we can see the integration here, that there is a queued message where we received an external, an update of the inbound order. And if we process this one, we have now completed the process, and the purchase orders has been updated to register, and we can then complete the normal product receipt flow like we do. That we would do for an old purchase order if we wasn't using this. So let's take a look at the sales process instead. And here I've set up customer this customer here to ship out of the one warehouse. That's what's going to trigger the whole process. So I will ship A001. We still require reservation here, like we also do before we release to warehouse normally. And when I then release to warehouse, we will create like an outbound shipment request, and we will create the message in the one company. So if I go to the one company, I received this outbound shipment order that I can now process. And the processing of the message gave me an outbound shipment order. So now I am close to something that looks like a sales order, and I can release this one to the warehouse, and then I can go process the work. So all of the message processing that I manually did here can of course be configured as a background job, so you don't have to pay any attention to this. And then you have a few dashboards that allow you to monitor the messaging in case something fails. Okay, so just walk you through completing of the outbound process here. So I'll just do a simple pick and put flow. And this is where I need to remember that I used the license plate that I just received here. So I'm just going to ship what I received there. Okay, so again, nothing special here. Everything is as we know it from sales and purchase order flows. Now I need to complete this shipment. So I'll confirm the shipment. And if I then go to my outbound shipment order, you can see that this shipment packing slip has been created. So this is a document you can print and give to the vendor. And I think one key point to call out here is that this is a packing slip number that you can control in various ways. I mean, you can send it over from the ERP if you really want this to be this one, and you can control if it's done from a number sequence, somehow matching the number of the store system. But let's take a look at how we complete the process inside the sales company. Now we would again have a message here. For the outbound shipment order. So if we process that one. So we are now consuming the information that the warehouse, the WOM company kind of communicated through a message that we are reflecting these changes inside the sales company. And if we look at our sales orders, the way this played out is that we got a shipment created. And this shipment actually has the packing slip ID that came from the WOM side. So now if we packing slip update, which is the normal sales packing slip update here, we will use the packing slip ID that the WOM system used. And thereby we keep those two in line. And I think this is an important requirement when it comes to some of the financial stuff that you can match the packing slips up. I'm not going to complete this. You need to trust me that this will happen. So the last scenario I want to demonstrate here is how to handle on-hand updates. So imagine that we somehow do accounting and there's more inventory of A001 than we expected. This is typically something that could happen inside the warehouse. Of course, it could also be the other way around where we lose inventory, but I decided to use the adjust linear. So I will just scan into the one location I used for the outbound processes here. This one. Some last some. Okay, and here, let's just pause. What happened here? I'm now prompted for the owner. And that's because in this context, I mean, we need to tell who actually owns this inventory that we are adjusting in, because, as I mentioned, I'm running a simple scenario where I just have USMF, but I could easily have multiple other companies. And we need to associate the owner to one of these companies so they know that this inventory is from them. So we filter it correctly when the messages about the on-hand reconciliation is being requested. So I need to enter the owner here, which is USMF.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're doing now is we are keeping track of all these inventory changes in something we call the warehouse inventory update log. So we can see that we just this represents the 11 I just counted in here. So because we are running in this shared warehouse, we have a background job, a process advisor job that is running, and I set it to run every minute. So within 1 minute, we will see that this update log reference is updated. And that means that we have actually created the data that can be consumed in the sales company, because the inventory needs to be adjusted there. Okay, so that happened behind the scenes. So if we now go to the USMF company, it is this one.
Yep.
It wasn't this one. See, I can just see the adjustments that were made. Create external inventory adjustment journal. Okay. So what I'll do now is the data that was created as part of the message that came from the one company, I will consume this here to get an adjustment journal created. Okay. I could, again, set up an automatic job that would just process any of these journals, but instead, because it demos slightly better, you can just see that there is now a journal here, here with 3 lines, which is what was there at the point in time where I requested this. And then I can now post this journal, which would update the on-hand, you see those 11 that I counted in here, which would update those the inventory here. There's a bit of flexibility here, and all of this is documented online. I'm not going to go into all the details, but you have quite a lot of control of which inventory events you want to have inside the log. One of the scenarios is that customer wants to see the inventory as real time as possible. And the second we receive the inventory through the mobile device, the warehouse management system has it on hand. And at this point in time, it can actually be communicated through the events and through the logs to the external system. But of course, you need to make a choice, because when we then complete the whole receiving, we generate this receiving journal that we imagine you will use to update your documents, your purchase order, for instance. And here you need to make sure that you don't double count inventory. But this is something you can control yourself depending on your business need. And you can, of course, control where you want this, because in USMF, there's probably some cost associated to this inventory that you can set up. In the WOM company, there isn't any cost. We don't deal with cost there. So this concludes the kind of the inventory reconciliation flow as well. I think I have enough time to just show you the configuration of the item inside the WOM company, because the item is not configured in the same way in the two companies. Actually, it doesn't even need to be the same item. You can map them in different ways. So the model group is interesting. Here we introduced a new way of modeling non-valuated here it is. So this means that this item will not have any price. We secure that because inside the WOM we don't deal with prices. It needs to be handled in some different way. That therefore we don't need to post to any ledgers or anything. So this model group is the one you should use for items inside the WOM module. So before we jump into the final part of the presentation here, I just want to walk you through a few of the details that I maybe went a bit quickly above. So if you look at the inbound shipment order message, for instance, here, we don't show all the fields, but we have something called a consignor's account here. And this is backed by, some of these are actually backed by real entities. So we are trying to keep the messages as self-containing as possible. However, we do recognize and acknowledge that sometimes there is a need for extensions. And behind the consignor and the consignee, there are actually entities that you can extend and use to drive, for instance, location directive logic based on this information. So these things do exist if you want to have more control inside the WOM. If everything can be controlled externally through the messages, there is no need for this. So it depends a bit on what we are trying to do. Also, if you actually need to edit messages, that capability is also there. Another thing that I didn't really cover is that you can also manually create inbound and outbound documents directly. Could be that for some reason you just didn't receive information from the external system and manually you simply need to create this order that represents something. Then you have that capability as well for both the inbound and the outbound shipment orders. There are some fields that we are not providing ENOMs on, so this is where you would actually need to use, for instance, this could be a purchase order that you would then specify based on whatever agreements you have with whoever set up the external system. So everything I covered here is, believe it or not, actually in the online documentation. So I would say very comprehensive documentation and tech talks as well covering this, going more into details about all the fields and the different messages, etc. We also have Git repositories where you can actually get JSON representation of the different messages and use some kind of posting framework to post these directly into to D365. It's something that we ourselves are using for testing, but also hear from many partners that this is quite useful. So all of this information is publicly available. With that, thank you very much for listening, and once again, thanks to DynamicsCon for hosting us for this session.
Hey, so Mirza and I is just trying to get acquainted with this Brella and all that. So we can see the questions in the chat, and we have around 9 minutes to try and give you the best answers we can to what was asked. So I think that there's a topic around which scenarios is this useful for, when would you go with one strategy versus the other. And I think Mirza is absolutely the best to cover this. So he will take that.
Okay, so hello everyone. So we just need to be crisp on that WMS and WOM are based on the same code base, and they are getting used, or they are used from the same SCM module. So it's just a question of how you deploy, if you deploy in a fully integrated way or deploy through the set of interfaces and events communicating with the external order taking system, whatever that is. And what scenarios we can support, it's following. WM can act as best of breed. If you have one instance and you have a SCM enabled with the same licensing model as we know it, then you can create a warehouse in the warehouse only mode, which gives you ability to use our WMS with an external system that could be Business Central, NAV on-prem, SAP, or any other order taking system. It can even be another instance somewhere of the D365 FNO. That's the one scenario. Second scenario is that we can have inside the same instance a legal entity that controls WOM, so a legal entity that has created a WM warehouse. And because we have ownership dimension, it can actually act as a shared warehousing, giving the same warehouse space to other legal entities or even players from outside, like external systems, in order to utilize same building, same employees in a shared environment where we know exactly who is owning what. And then we have also scenarios where people would like to use WM as a 3PL provider, where they will spin up the warehouse only mode, one or multiple warehouses, create a templates for the warehouses, and on the top, they will then bring ISV solutions. We have one like Aventico that has integrated into the WM for the purpose of automatic billing of activities and value-added services on the top of our data, which enables automatic invoicing and billing of 3PL services. So these are the kind of main scenarios that we see there. And then there was a question, why would you do this instead of doing the full-fledged release of the ERP, and then they don't need to re-implement WMS. And then we see the cases where somebody acquires another company, they don't know how long time that company will stay inside you, maybe implement a full new ERP, but you want to have same WMS across the group, then you can actually do and provide the same WMS template to that another company while it makes sense. So, and then we have also some strange, maybe extreme cases. We have a customer who wanted to give advanced warehousing to one of their biggest suppliers because they think that that will improve supply as a warehouse and connect to a supplier's ERP system, whatever that is, and use same scanning capabilities, automation, integration, whatever it's needed. And the last scenario that we have seen is that we have seen the scenario where the customer went live with another company that they have acquired, and that another company had a legacy ERP system on-prem that was really bad of integrating into the automation. So what they did, they placed actually the warehouse-only mode as a middle layer between WMS. So we have seen that. We didn't count on these kind of examples, but we have seen that as well, and they are as well live. So Lennart, please take over. This is basically these scenarios that we see out there.
Yeah, then we see a few questions like around the integration part, the master management or product master management. I think you need to let us know what you are missing here. We built everything on top of the existing entities, and we have designed it in a way so we can integrate using the entities, because then we can process those as messages. This is the thought here. Do note that, I mean, the master data needed in the WOM company is way less than what you would need in standard ERP. I mean, for instance, you do not need a lot of costing setup because there is no concept of cost. So there's a lot of things that are not needed in the WOM company, which should by default make it easier to maintain. Then there was a few questions around, do we support batch below, serial below? The answer is yes. Everything when it comes to the work is standard. I mean, there is no notion of work for an outbound shipment order. There is, but all the code is the same here. We also deliberately did this because if you want to start with WOM and later move to full suite, I mean, you should not need to rewrite all your extensions in a super extensive way. That's why the core is absolutely the same there. And I think we had one more here. The early question around Business Central. Yes, we have live customers actually that operates Business Central, so we can definitely answer yes to that is supported. Sure, Mirza can provide you with partner information if you have a need for that. Obviously, we cannot mention other customers' name on this call. I hope you understand that.
We have posted our emails in the chat.
I think we probably the early. Yeah, I can just like with the 2 minutes left. Mirza, you muted yourself, but I think what Mirza is saying is that our email should be in the chat, so you can reach us for follow-up questions. The on-hand question that was raised in the chat early on. You should see WOM as the source of truth. WOM is the system that should know best what is on hand. Because if somebody knocks over a pallet, I mean, and adjust out, there will be a small delay until the ERP notices this. So how you operate your ERP side, that you can make a decision on how much do you trust your warehouse there. But when it comes to the shared warehousing that I demoed, we keep the two in sync. And I think we are at the end. So Mirza is muted, but on behalf of Mirza and me and the entire warehouse team from Microsoft, I just want to thank you for listening in. Don't hold back with reaching out. We're on a journey here, and we want you to be part of that, and we want to support you on that journey.
All it said.
Okay.
Thank you.